I'm here today to discuss about the mental model that my teams and I have started to develop and use throughout the years, and that has helped us to reduce the on-call pain and interruptions. Either you are a manager or a software engineer or even a student, I do hope and believe that every one of you in the arena get to learn something and maybe apply later, being inspired from this presentation. Now, to make sure we start from the same baseline, first thing first, what is on call? And if for some of you this makes your mind go immediately to Scrubs or Grey's Anatomy, let me say that you are not that far. Being on call as a software engineer basically means making yourself available to be able to tackle any incoming production issues that your team services are encountering, and being enabled to do this in a timely manner. This common role is basically second nature for engineering roles at companies that build and run their own products, and they do so with great care and detail of the user experience. So they cannot wait from one day to another to tackle a production issues, but rather make sure that these issues are addressed on a timely manner. And there are tons of materials and practices that are done by teams in the whole industry. So I invite you to explore if you haven't done so and see how different teams and companies go about that. When it comes to Adobe, we have a long history with on-call and what we call as the unified engineering culture, meaning that each engineering team and each engineer in particular gets to be primary on call for the set of services that their team is owning and running in production. This means that there's no separation of concern here, regardless of the background that engineer has, be it more on the development side of things or testing or site reliability engineering. Everyone is part of the same journey. And since we have so many teams and so different products and business domain, it is fair to say that while we do adopt the same framework, there are a diversity of implementations. So if you look at Adobe Teams, you can find a diverse set of implementations starting from the daily schedule. There are teams that do this following the sun, meaning that they are just on call, primary on call until the sun sets and another team from a different geography takes over. But there are teams that do this on a 24/7 schedule. Of course, this is constrained according to a time frame. The common setup is to have weekly on-call rotations. And the other particularity that might appear from one team to another is with this respect to the roles and the set of responsibilities that the engineers get to have throughout their on-call. Depending on the on-call load, you might be 100% involved in the action items that you need to take to address production issues. Or if you have a smoother on-call, then you might be able to do other things as well. As far as I'm concerned, I would say that I've been in a close relationship with on-call, especially since I started my journey here at Adobe 6 years ago, as I have been contributing to a diverse set of critical services that are deployed worldwide and serve billions of requests per day to a different set of customers and industries. So from my both roles as a software engineer and lately as an engineering manager, I got to experience every side of being on call, and I have learned a lot. That's why today I want to share a part of that learning journey with you. And that journey that I'm going to showcase today through the medium of the story of one of my teams is related to the ways on call can be painful and the importance of caring about this and the eventual impact that it can have on your team members. And when I say on call pain, basically I refer to the amount of interruptions that on call produces, especially during outside working hours, be it sleep interruptions, movie time, family time, and even doing nothing time. This, without being taken care of, can negatively impact both your mental and physical health. So that's why at the end of the day, no one can blame people for leaving environments that not only expose them to such a schedule, but also do not empower them to make it better. Before digging into the case study and the mental model, I do want to clarify first what I mean by effective on-call workflows and what we aim for throughout the past years. First, I would say what I don't mean by that, meaning having teams experimenting a continuous cycle of alerts, triggering, especially during the outside hours, piling up with an extreme sense of sleepless hours, anxiety, and whatnot, and at the end, the team experiencing a sense of helplessness, let's say, because this is not getting better. What I mean by an effective on-call workflow, in my experience, is a data-driven and iterative process that helps the team find the right space for continuous learning and improvement while showcasing itself to reduce the amount of on-call interruptions, and also including each team member part of the process so that they are empowered every time they are primary on-call engineer. They are empowered to be accountable for the issues they are responsible to solve, and also empowered to take action to solve them. Throughout the presentations, I'm going to borrow a mental model from Simon Sinek's book, which is called Start With Why, and basically gravitates around the idea that every action that we take as an individual or as a group is tightly connected with our internal values and how we are as people. So for the rest of the slides, I'm gonna tell our story and guide you through how to identify the why and the needs of your team and yourself to go with a new change and a new process, how to go about the implementation, and lastly, how to reflect on the results and what to do next. So let's start with why and how this story started to shape 2 years ago. The case study that I'm presenting today is related to one of the Edge teams at Adobe, and we call them Edge because they are responsible for real-time data collection services that are deployed worldwide, are associated with a lot of nines in terms of availability. So everything needs to happen fast, everything needs to be reliable, so that all the services that depend on our capabilities get the right amount of capabilities. So it's needless to say that for such a team and for such a suite of services, should a production outage occur, all eyes would be on us and on-call would start to get fun. And with this particular team, there was a special context 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago, since the pandemic has started. On-call back then was the hot topic that never ceased to appear in day-to-day discussions, team retrospectives, one-on-ones. And needless to say, there was something there. First of all, the beginning of the pandemic made us go completely remote and work from home, and made us adapt the ways we used to collaborate and even solve these on-call issues together. Also, the pandemic brought a dramatic increase of the traffic and the number of customers our services needed to serve, because most of the companies turn into digital solutions for the digital marketing um, area, the one that we as a team were part of, speaking of the business domain. Another important aspect back then was the fact that this was also related to the reorganization that my team and I were going through. We basically became the sole owners of this services suite. So we didn't have another team in a different geography to rely on or follow the sun on call. We had to do 24/7 on call. And what is more is the fact that part of this reorganization meant that half of the team members were new, myself included, since this was my first team as an engineering manager. So all sets of challenges. And if I look at the on-call stats back then, there are a lot of numbers that we could depict, but the primary one was the amount, a high amount of sleep interruptions that the team experienced throughout an on-call shift, which was weekly based. And the outlier metric that we started to look at more carefully was the one that we call the mean time to fall asleep again, because with each sleep interruption, some of the team members couldn't experience a healthy amount of sleep. So by now, you would say, having this context, that, well, we as a team had the right data to take control and do whatever we needed to do to address these issues. But this is what why I'm exactly here for, to showcase when this is actually not that straightforward to tackle. And I'm gonna refer by a statement which I completely resonated with from one of Charity Major's articles, which says that on-call is a social technical problem, and basically connects to the previous presentation from You Got This. We don't only work with systems, software, hardware. We work with people, and in this context, on-call is being operated by people and is highly influenced by them, their values, their emotions, and their needs. And when it comes to our needs, there are two main needs that we as human beings need to have, regardless of what action and endeavor we engage in. First is the need of having a sense of security, and this is always threatened by a fear. And the second important need that we need to have fulfilled is having a sense of satisfaction, which is always enhanced by a sense of inner power. In my experience, on-call is quite linked to both. And in our team's case, the social part of the problem was mainly hydrated by two main sources of fear. First, it was the fear of lacking enough knowledge. And this happened especially for the newcomers in the team that had to adapt to the amount of complexity and legacy knowledge that they needed to ramp up on in order to be effectively contributing to the team setup and also the on-call. And the other one, which is basically related more to the anxiety that being accountable, especially while being primary on call, for a huge code base that might turn into an alert every time, maybe even during the night, and having the sense of not having captured enough knowledge in order to be the only one that knows how to solve that issue. What we experienced back then is also well known as the bus factor, which is another term that the previous presentation covered. But as creepy as it may sound, this is also known as the minimum number of people in your team that should they be hit by a bus, your project and your team would be over. In our case back then, this number was one for a lot of critical areas of our services. This meant that only one engineer knew most of what was being developed there, how it works, and most importantly, what it takes to intervene during their on-call duration. This also created a habit of the team because regardless of who was on call, that specialized engineer would take over the alert. Because in the short run, it seems to fulfill our needs faster. The issue was solved, nothing would get hurt in the process, and the alert disappeared. However, in the long run, this did nothing but increase the knowledge gap that we had in the team. So it hydrated even more our two main sources of fear, which consistently creating a sense of insecurity and anxiety produced by being on call in this team. So having these conclusions together through a lot of team retrospectives, one-on-ones, and closely analyzing what it meant for each team member to be part of the context, we gain the right amount of clarity to understand what we can do next. And ultimately, if I look back at all the experiments that we've done, because to be honest, what I'm presenting today is nothing more than the result of multiple iterations, experiments on how to develop an on-call process that works for us. But the constant that we've had along these years is that we've tried along the way to build healthy team habits that helped us take action in the direction that we wanted to go through. And when I talk about habits, my mind immediately goes to the Atomic Habits book by James Clear, which I'm really fond of, and I've been using a lot in both my professional and personal life. And the main idea of the book is that the only habits that stick are the ones that are really tied to your identity, who you are, and what you need, and what are your values. And the same thing applies to teams. So what we have tried to do was to inherit the four steps of creating a new habit that Jane Clear outlines, which are the following. Whenever you want to create a new habit and make sure that you do what you're saying to do, you need to ensure that it is obvious what you need to do. You make it attractive and easy along the way. And at the end, it's satisfying to do that. So, to make it obvious, for us, it was clear that we had a lot of issues, a diverse set of root causes, and a lot of action items that we needed to prioritize. So, to make them obvious and easily identifiable, we created a designated backlog, which we called on duty, and make sure that every time we had this in our team roadmap, regardless of the product roadmap and other things that the team needed to accomplish. And as James Clear says in his book, the best way to create a new habit is to pair it with an existing one. And this is what we have did. We basically paired the role of being primary on call with the role of being the on-duty engineering. Means that if you were to be primary on call in our team, your first priority would still remain to respond to incoming alerts and and solve that issue. But if you had time between these interventions, you would get to work on this continuously prioritized and clarified backlog. This helped us in the long run to remove the subject matter expert zone, meaning that everyone in the team would get to experience a diverse set of problems during the on-call, and rather be guided by the ones that already had the knowledge. Ultimately, this helped us to decrease the knowledge gap amongst our team members. To make it attractive, not only did we introduce this on-duty backlog, but we also introduced the token of power, meaning that the team and only the team had the right and the complete control to define this backlog and to prioritize it from one on-call week to another. Everyone needed to be on top of what are the main sources of on-call pain today, and what we as a team, as an empowered team, can do to solve them further. Of course, we needed some easy ways to do that. And because we had a lot of services to deal with and a huge amount of knowledge, we started to run on-call review sessions at the end of each on-call rotation. And for 30 minutes, we have basically spent our time together to clarify what were the main source of on-call incidents we got to experience, what we can learn from them, and what action items we need to prioritize as part of the on-duty backlog to reduce the amount of on-call pain and load. And because we needed a second brain, we had a lot of information being discussed and decided, we have decided to aggregate an historical on-call log. Initially, we started writing on-call review sessions mementos, putting them in wikis or documents, but throughout the iterations, we have discovered that we need a more clever way to do that. We need a log that is easily searchable. We can do some computation, statistics. So as a team, we started with simple tools like office tools, from using forms to submit data, using spreadsheets to make this analysis and further extraction. But there are also tools like PagerDuty, and I'm sure others, that can do this on behalf of your team. So it really depends on what you have access to. What I'm telling you is that I'm sure there's a way for you and the team to accomplish this goal. Last but not least, to make it satisfying, well, having this second brain, this historical on-call log, it made it easy for us from one on-call review session to another to look at how our work and effort invested in to make the on-call better was actually showcasing in a decreasing trend of number of incidents for a particular service or area of services. And this visualization exercise also helped us to prioritize action items when we were faced with a lot of them coming from a diverse set of services. And we needed a straightforward way to prioritize them without sweating too much about it. And again, you can choose from really simple tools like Excel, which is really powerful in the data visualization and computation, and also tools like PagerDuty. In the end, for our team, on-call turned into a strategy video game where being on-call meant to be on a quest to bring these lines down. And every time we got to witness a recurring pattern of a line being down, that was a moment to call for celebration in our team. Now, if I look back at what we've accomplished together and tried out throughout the years, I think the valuable step and shift that we've done together as a team was to have these conversations in the first place and to discuss each of us whys and what are our needs, and then start together to define what we need to do. Now, after years of doing this repeatedly with different forms and shapes, our on-call review sessions have started to not exceed 10 minutes anymore. And I recall a special day when the previous primary on-call engineer joined the review session and said, well, this one was rather boring and I don't have anything special to cover today. For us, that was a moment of celebration because it meant that we have finally arrived where we have set ourselves towards to. And as a leader, I would say that indeed, even in our case, most of our problems were often related to our team setup and our habits to be able to not only to control what we already had control of, but to have habits that help us to take action and not leave us into a analysis paralysis state, or even so feeding our bias toward action, because as engineers we are always tempted to start implementing the solution without really identifying the problem. With on call, this is a subject worth taking the time and analyze with the team. As a final thought, I am sure that this is not a recipe, a process that can be applied 100% in every team context. Most of the time, these social technical problems that get to be helped with team processes don't work exactly by the books. That's why you need to take the time to involve the team in this process, whether you're an engineer or a manager. You cannot go alone and decide just from one single perspective what to do next. The constant is really change when it comes to engineering teams and developing and maintaining production services. These systems will always need to evolve, and the same applies to the team and the way you grow as a team. And change is hard. In my experience and every team experience, this is not something that is gonna solve by the end of the tomorrow. It requires a series of months of curiosity and resilience to experiment with. But as a final reflection and food for thought that I would like to pass on to you today is the fact that regardless of the challenging situation and the context, it's always good to start with the data. If you don't have the data, then that would be the first step. And then use the data to build healthy team habits that help you take action on it and also help you reflect afterwards. Thank you for having me. And I'm more than happy to connect with you further on this topic.